Well, well, well. Buck Jensen here in Victory County. We finally took our country back. Whoa! Time for a change, boys. Fresh start for this land.
They deported all the help on the family farm.
Yeah.
Want a job for $7.25 an hour?
Hell no.
I'm an idiot. We can't do it alone. My harvest failed.
Yeah.
This ain't what I voted for.
We're just absolutely fucked as farmers, guys. Everything is so fucked, and I do not see anybody surviving.
Right now, we're in a very dire situation.
What happens about to see the devastation, especially to rural health care and rural economies, that the big, ugly bill is going to cause?
Oh, shoot. You thought that farmers got a bailout? You thought that $12 billion was going to cover their losses?
So while Trump is running around saying we're in the golden age of America, that the economy is roaring, and that the affordability crisis is a Democratic hoax, there are real-world consequences tied directly to his trade war and tariff policies.
I think people will look and say, but wait a minute, they're Americans who are unemployed. Why can't you just hire them?
They don't want to come out here and work in this extreme conditions.
Farmers are going bankrupt in waves, right? We see that. But here's the thing. The very man that most of them voted for lit half the match. And every time a family farm dies, somehow it's the billionaires and corporations walking away with more land.
I mean, it could be worse. Someone could have, actually lost their family farm over these illegal tariffs. Oh, yeah. They did. They are.
I think agriculture has taken a heck of a hit on a lot of misinformation, and he is not helping the farmer. I mean, we farm about 3,500 acres. We are going to be so far in the red after the crop comes off, sold, you can only sit on it so long. You got bills to pay, and now we're dealing with 7, 8, 9, 10% operating notes at the local bank. You know,
This was a Missouri farmer, but did you know all farmers are going to be screwed? There is a $49 billion deficit just for 2025. Now I want you to multiply that by 4. All because one man started a trade war that he has lost with every other country. This is the FAFO stage, and if you didn't know, farmers have been begging since day one. If you did not know, farmers voted for him not once, not twice, but 3 times. Farm bankruptcy is skyrocketing. Farm suicide is skyrocketing. But guess what? A lot of them say they would vote for him again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call an FAFO of the worst kind. We could not save them from themselves. Drop a comment and follow for more.
I think agriculture has taken a heck of a hit on a lot of misinformation, and he is not helping the farmers. I mean, we farm about 3,500 acres. We are going to be so far in the red after the crop comes off, sold, you can only sit on it so long. You got bills to pay, and now we're dealing with 7, 8, 9, 10% operating notes at the local bank. You know,
This was a Missouri farmer, but did you know all farmers are going to be screwed? There is a $49 billion deficit just for 2025. Now I want you to multiply that by 4. All because one man started a trade war that he has lost with every other country. This is the FAFO stage, and if you didn't know, farmers have been begging since day one. If you did not know, farmers voted for him not once, not twice, but 3 times. Farm bankruptcy is skyrocketing. Farm suicide is skyrocketing. But guess what? A lot of them say they would vote for him again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call an FAFO of the worst kind. We could not save them from themselves. Drop a comment and follow for more.
I just had to come to Walmart to pick up a prescription, and I don't know, it just really struck me today. Like, I live in rural Arkansas, right? It's a poor state. Like, there's a lot of people in this community that depend on government assistance to eat. And, you know, walking around and thinking about how many people are maybe shopping for the first time this month without that assistance and trying to figure out what they're going to get to make it last, and then thinking about the fact that most of them probably voted for this shit. And it's so sad and it's so aggravating, but it's just so backwards. But like, also this, there are people in this town that are like coming out of their skin because they want, has a contractor is trying to put a solar farm on some private property somewhere. And I don't know all the details, so I don't know what it involves with taxes and all that shit, but like, it's not, their complaints are all about the environment and this and that, and like, hang on a second. That's the lovely paper mill on the outside skirts of town. That's healthy, right?
American farmers overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in this past election, and they're about to have an FAFO moment. As background, American farmers export $15.2 billion in soybeans to China every single year. And now, because of Donald Trump's tariffs, these farmers are in big trouble. 8 out of the 10 states that produce the most soybeans that are exported to China voted for Donald Trump. The last time Donald Trump was in office, the agriculture sector lost $27 billion as a result of his previous tariffs. As a result of Donald Trump's previous rounds of tariffs in 2018, China began to seek alternative sources for soybeans outside the United States. Since 2018, China has developed a strong relationship with Brazil, accounting for 73% of all soybean exports from the country. China's purchase of soybeans from Brazil has now skyrocketed this year, and it is expected.
Hey, just some guy here, and this is why rural MAGA voters lose the most from school vouchers. I'll explain it slowly with some maps and math. Okay, this one is probably going to sting a little because you rural conservatives are being played the hardest in this whole school voucher circus. And I don't think you even realize it. So let's walk through it. School vouchers, they sound great to y'all on TV. Freedom, choice, escape failing schools. Cool. Now, quick question. How many private schools are within 30 miles of your rural town? Exactly. Most rural counties don't have private schools. They don't have charter networks. They don't have choice marketplaces. They have one school. One, and that school is the football stadium, the jobs hub, the community center, the emergency shelter, the tax base anchor. It's the heart of the town. Now here comes the voucher policy. State legislator passes it. Tax dollars get set aside for school choice. Urban, suburban families where private schools actually exist, they use it. Rural districts, they still only have one school, but now their state education budget is thinner. So the rural district loses funding. They don't gain options. That's not choice, that's extraction. Studies from groups like National Rural Education Association have warned that voucher expansion disproportionately harms rural districts because enrollment loss hits harder when you only have one school. You can't consolidate when you're already consolidated. You can't shop around when there's nothing to shop. And here's the brutal math. An urban district loses enrollment, it's annoying. A rural district loses enrollment, that might mean cutting teachers, cutting electives, cutting sports, and combining grades. Small districts operate on very thin margins. There's no cushion. And guess what else rural schools often have more of? Higher poverty rates, higher special education needs, longer bus routes, higher transportation costs. They are already expensive to operate per student. Now reduce funding and what happens? Programs disappear and the politicians say, see, it's inefficient. No, it's isolated. And here's the kicker. Voucher money overwhelmingly goes to metro areas because that's where private schools are. So rural taxpayers help fund private school tuition in cities while their own schools get weaker. You are subsidizing someone else's choice. That's the grift. And when rural schools close, towns shrink, property values drop, young families leave, businesses don't move in. The community erodes. Public schools are economic anchors. You rip them out and the town bleeds. Meanwhile, the same politician who pushed voucher campaigns on protecting rural America, protecting it from what? Its own school? If you're rural and cheering vouchers, you're voting to destabilize the only education infrastructure that you have. That is not freedom, that is self-sabotage. School choice was designed for dense areas with alternatives. Applying it to rural America is selling subway passes in a town without a train. But it polls well, so they sell it anyways. And you rural voters, just keep footing the bill. Just some guy's thoughts.
So while Trump is running around saying we're in the golden age of America, that the economy is roaring, and that the affordability crisis is a Democratic hoax, there are real-world consequences tied directly to his trade war and tariff policies. And they're hitting American workers and businesses right now. I mean, the Fed chair, the guy tasked with paying attention to the economy and making decisions based on his expertise, explicitly said tariffs are the reason our prices are increasing. And that's not even all of it. This year, Stellantis temporarily laid off 900 U.S. workers after tariff pressures disrupted auto production. Volvo cut hundreds of American jobs at multiple plants. Small manufacturers have closed facilities entirely, laying off workers because imported materials became too expensive. Retailers have shut down stores. Factory workers have been laid off. Some companies have even filed for bankruptcy, listing tariffs as a contributing factor. So, when Donald Trump says the economy is perfect and that people are just imagining higher prices and instability, understand this. Workers being laid off, factories pausing production, and companies shutting down, those aren't hoaxes. They're consequences. And if you want to see exactly how this is playing out, look at what recently happened to Jim Beam.
Our top story this morning, one of Kentucky's biggest distilleries plans to temporarily halt production at its main facility in a matter of days. CNN reports Jim Beam will press pause at its primary distillery in Claremont, Kentucky, starting January 1st. The decision comes as the state deals with an increase in aging barrels and ongoing economic uncertainty. The Kentucky Distillers Association says right now there's an all-time high of around 16 million aging bourbon barrels in Kentucky warehouses, and distillers are paying millions for their supply because of Commonwealth tax laws. In a statement, Jim Beam said it'll improve its facility during the pause. The distiller will continue production at its other Claremont distillery and a third distillery in Boston, Kentucky. So far, Jim Beam hasn't announced any layoffs.
And this is exactly how a fuck around and find out works. Because in that small community in Claremont, Kentucky, many of those people are employed by Jim Beam. And right now, their employment is uncertain. And 65% of them voted for Donald Trump. 65%. And here's the thing. Had those people looked back at his first term, had they looked at news articles from his first term, had they looked up videos from different news sources of his first term, they would have known this was going to happen. Had they listened to the many of us who were telling them these tariff policies are going to cause problems for small businesses, large businesses, and especially people working in rural areas and in small communities where they all depend on almost one company.
Remember when they told y'all short-term pain, long-term gain? Yeah, that just didn't include you as a regular American citizen. The Lutniks who purchased the rights on the shorts to the tariffs that just got shot down, they just made a fuck ton of money on that. Like a fuck ton of money. Those companies are getting back those tariffs because they were considered, unconstitutional. So all that money that they were charged, they're getting it back. And us, the regular citizens who had to carry that burden, that extra cost, nothing. Long-term gain, short-term pain. Your short-term pain for the year of pain that you suffered with paying more increased prices. Long-term gain for the billionaires at the top, who just secured their grandchildren's futures, remain solid gold. Congratulations. You guys won.
So in a second, I'm going to show you a video that's going to make my point for me, but here's an unpopular opinion. China is becoming what everybody thought the United States would eventually become 50 years ago. It's happening now. Big moneyed interests, large corporate autocrats govern what happens in American society. And you may not agree with that, but I can tell you, just based off of the economic system we're presented with today, we don't have technological advancement here in the US that actually helps the vast majority of society. Whatever technological advancements we have here in the US is based off of profitability. So for instance, if a pharmaceutical company came up with the cure for cancer, right, there would probably be a group of people that will decide if the United States gets access to that life-saving care based off of profitability. If it's not profitable, it won't happen. Believe it or not, there were actually investment analysts that came out and did a study on things like this and pretty much said that, like, yeah, it wouldn't make any sense to cure a lot of disease because we can't make money off of it. And that's one of the biggest problems with our system, because in our free market system, it comes down to whether or not these things are profitable. For instance, something that's growing at a really fast pace in China are manned aerial vehicles. Imagine a car, but instead of wheels, it has propellers like drones. It's essentially a very big drone. And instead of driving to where you need to go, you can get in your drone, you'll go straight up and then fly over directly where you need to go and then land. Okay, it's like a mini helicopter kind of, but it's a drone. They are developing the infrastructure for this already. They are developing it. There's a dozen companies that are doing this there in China. It's especially established already in big cities where, you know, you're going from rooftop to rooftop, like a helicopter would, but in a much more efficient manner. That might not ever happen in the United States. And the biggest reason is there's too much moneyed interest in our current transportation system. It's the same reason we haven't seen high-speed rail, which other developed nations have. It's very, very, very efficient using high-speed rail to move lots of people between cities and areas using high-speed rail. It's very efficient, it's easy to track it, and it's just really, really, really cost effective. Whereas here in the United States, we have automobile companies and energy companies that have been in bed with each other to make sure that we forever have to pump our own gas and then buy vehicles every 5 to 6 years reliably to keep them in power, okay? So a UAV coming here, like, you know, flying cars, unless auto manufacturers got good at that and they didn't make money, they could make money on the downstream of, like, also making money off of whatever powers that vehicle, it will never happen here in the US. Here's a video I'm going to show you of the medical system in China. And it's a video of a man walking through a hospital and identifying menus that give you the pricing of all the services the hospital provides. And the biggest difference between here and the US is, well, here in the US, if you go to see the doctor, you go to the hospital, they get your information right at the entrance there, and then they check you in, and then you go see a doctor, and then they do everything, and then they see if your insurance is going to pay for everything, and then your insurance gets to have a say on whether or not you get this care, right? Emergency situations are a little bit different, but even still, if you go through the emergency room in a hospital, by the time you come out, you're going to pay thousands and thousands of dollars. Not in China. In China, their main focus is taking care of as many people as possible. They're not there trying to make a profit as the most important thing. And what you're seeing in China also is a massive growing middle class. But look, check out this video.
Here's a hospital in China with pricing. All the pricing is public. You can go to one of these machines and you can get any quote for anything you want in the hospital. An MRI is 480 RMB, which US dollars is that. Once you have your appointment, you'll go up on that side of the hospital and then down on this side of the hospital. So that'll take you up as far as you need to go, and down. You go to the right floor and the right section. All right, so this is in English, right? Self-check-in, area B floor 4, and then you'll scan your QR code on your ticket on this thing, and it will tell you when your appointment's going to be. Boom. Waiting areas typically look like this, and then the numbers are on the screen up there, so once your number's called, you go back and see the doctor. The doctor's office look like these. When you go in, it's just the doctor. Maybe there's a nurse in there as well, like doing all the record keeping and note taking. And you'll talk to them directly. You'll pay everything in there. It's very easy and straightforward. If they order you a blood test, this is the area you go to. So you'll scan on those machines over there. These folks here are the ones that take your blood. It's extremely fast and efficient. Probably takes 5 minutes to do a blood test, and then you get the results on your phone. So anyways, guys, this is China. Hopefully this is helpful. Shows you a side of China you wouldn't otherwise see or hear.
About communist China versus capitalist China, government control everything. If you don't think the American government is partially controlled by oligarchs like automobile companies or energy companies, and you think that's somehow super different than how it's governed in China, message me. We can have a talk, because I'll prove it to you. But the point is here, China is doing a better job of taking care of citizens than the United States is. And that's just one example. I'm not here trying to trash the United States. I'm just giving you an example of something that's actually happening in another part of the world where they're doing better than the United States. And just like we have throughout American history, people should identify successes in other societies and try to model that, because other people are better than us at these types of things because of the system that they use. It's not putting profits before people.
I think people will look and say, but wait a minute, they're Americans who are unemployed. Why can't you just hire them?
They don't want to come out here and work in this extreme conditions, 100+ degree temperatures, dust, hard work.
What if you paid them more?
It doesn't matter. We pay some of the highest wages for farm workers in the nation right here in California, and they won't come out. In California, we grow about 50% of the fruits and vegetables and nuts for the country. And any shortage of food like that is going to impact everybody in the nation, because not only will food be less available, it'll be more expensive.
Manuel Cunha Jr. runs the Nisei Farmers League, a trade organization representing farmers and farm workers in the Fresno area. He says Trump's promise to deport all undocumented migrants would disrupt the entire country.
If you took away my workforce, you wouldn't eat. If you go into the San Joaquin Valley and you start doing what you're saying, it's over. The country will stop. It will literally stop, because the food system won't move.
And like Joe Del Bosque, he insists these undocumented farm workers are not taking jobs that would otherwise go to American citizens.
I don't care what you pay them. I don't care if you pay them $26 an hour. It ain't going to happen. They're not going to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, drive to the field, and pick.
Farmers are going bankrupt in waves, right? We see that. But here's the thing. The very man that most of them voted for lit half the match. And every time a family farm dies, somehow it's the billionaires and corporations walking away with more land. You think that's a coincidence? Let's start with the trade war in 2018. Trump slapped tariffs on China. Soybean exports gone. Prices crashed. And farmers sat on mountains of crops that they couldn't sell. Then came the bailouts. $28 billion in so-called aid. But look at the receipts, right? The top 10% of farms swallowed most of that money. Small family-owned farms, pennies. Folks in Arkansas and the Midwest saw their neighbors lose land, all while mega operations cashed checks. And if we fast forward to now, Trump's promise of more help, it sounded real nice on stage, huh? But the structure has not changed. The policies tilt towards whoever's the biggest, not whoever's struggling. And when those farms fold, the land doesn't vanish. It gets scooped up. Bill Gates owns over 240,000 acres. BlackRock, foreign companies, hedge funds, all buying dirt cheap. Meanwhile, Trump's administration cut back on antitrust enforcement. That meant that seed and chemical giants kept jacking up the input prices. So farmers were squeezed on both ends, paying more to plant and getting less when they sold. And the safety net? Trump gutted programs like the Conservation Stewardship Program. That rewarded small-scale sustainability, while doubling down on subsidies that benefit corporate-scale operations. So tell me again how that's helping family farms? So here's the pattern, right? Trade wars cripple markets. Bailouts feed the giants. Deregulation lets agribusiness hike costs. And the small guys, they drown. Then, right on time, the billionaires show up with open checkbooks. Corporations expand and politicians spin it as bad luck. Or the market. But every so-called accident clears the board for the same winners. So no, this isn't just economics, it's politics. This is design. Trump stood on stage and called himself the farmer's guy. But his policies greased the slide that pushed family farms into bankruptcy and left their land ripe for billionaires to grab. Bananas, soybeans, now farmland, different product, same empire. The only coincidence that some of us are still out here pretending that it's not on purpose.
There is a farmer who is going super viral right now because he's making many videos about how he's in trouble due to the current administration and how he might lose his farm, which is, of course, devastating, and nobody wants to lose their farm. And if you look at the comment section and you look at his follow-up videos, it's abundantly clear that he never bothered to consider Project 2025 or the plans that Trump clearly had for small farmers. How long were we sounding the alarm bells for Project 2025? How many videos have I personally made educating people on Project 2025? It is devastating and not at all surprising how you all voted against your own interests and now you're complaining about it. We told you over.
I mean, it could be worse. Someone could have actually lost their family farm over these illegal tariffs. Oh, oh yeah. They did. They are. Yeah, fuck around and find out. Don't you wish you'd voted for the lady with the crazy laugh now? Yeah, you'd still have your farm.
Skyler, you've met him once before.
I might lose my farm because...
Now, thanks to this farmer, we now know what actually happened behind the scenes with Skyler. You see, Skyler got his money from the government after he had Democrats come out and actually fight for him on Capitol Hill. And as soon as he got his, he turned his back on everybody else. And now he says this. And of course he uses the terms illegal immigrant because calling them undocumented people would be admitting that they are in fact people. You see, it's a funny thing, Skyler. You voted for a man who's a 34-time felon, so you obviously do not care about legality. Let's answer this disingenuous question. To start, 16.7 million American citizens, including 6 million children, who all live with one or more undocumented family member. That's who's being hurt. I'm going to skip over the fact that he's not targeting the undocumented community. He's targeting any and everyone he can find. That includes people going through the legal process, green card holders, visa holders, etc. And I'm going to skip right to the point of what affects you. How about everyone in America, including farmers just like you, who rely on those undocumented immigrants to go and pick the fruits and vegetables that ends up on our tables every day? Oh wait, you're a cattle rancher. Let's talk about farmers like you who are fixing to be hurt by these tariffs when China stops buying our beef. How about in the middle of hurricane, tornado, and flood season, Donnie decided to freeze FEMA funding. And yes, immediate needs funding has since been unfrozen, but other grant programs that FEMA relies on are still frozen because of administrative actions of this president. Or we can also talk about how he defunded the National Weather Service so severely that they had to cut 880 NOAA employees, including meteorologists and researchers who were laid off in early 2025. Those layoffs have led to significant staffing shortages across the National Weather Service, with some offices operating at reduced capacity or ceasing 24/7 operation. 3 of those National Weather Services in Kentucky alone had to cut their staffs, and they no longer are operating 24/7. They also don't have meteorologists on staff. And across the United States, they've had to stop sending up weather balloons, which means less accurate weather predictions, which means we are in more danger. I could go on. The list is quite extensive, but I'm going to leave it there for right now. Skyler, next time I suggest you listen to the older farmer and get off your high horse.
The farming community across the country is continuing on in their find out era, because now while they are getting a bailout from this administration, farmers across the country have expressed concern and how they are not happy because farming industry as a whole is still $49 billion in the red, which y'all voted red. You can stay in the red for a while. Because I don't know about you, when I voted for Harris, that was saying I care about you and I want you to do well. Okay, I voted for you. You voted for this, though. You knew what was going to happen. He was very clear what he was going to do, but you let your hate and racism override what was actually best for you. And now you're upset because you're not getting enough money from the government? No. I thought you didn't like government bailouts. Or is that only when they're for other people who don't look like you? Sadly, sometimes you have to learn the hard way, and we have figured out now that there is one thing that everybody as a whole collectively seems to care about, at least when they vote for this administration, and that's money. Seems to be the only way anybody on your side will learn from their mistakes, is when their financials are affected. So hopefully you'll learn and vote better next time.
So, as many of us know, during the 2024 election, farmers overwhelmingly backed Donald during the election. And then in 2025, many of them entered the find-out stage of the vote through a combination of policies such as the immigration raids that wiped out a lot of the workforce that they rely on, tariffs on steel, for such items as farming equipment, tariffs on their crops, the removal of USAID, in which a lot of these farmers had contracts with other countries, and souring relationships with other nations. Well, let's just say 2026 is probably not looking good for them either. Now, even though Donnie gave them a $12 billion bailout, farmers last year lost between $35 to $44 billion, meaning that there's still a huge deficit that needs to be covered. Now, during the 2024 election, in the nation's 444 farming-dependent counties, Donald pulled in nearly 78% of the vote. Those same counties are now watching multi-generational family farms get fed into the wood chipper of MAGAnomics. It's the purest form of leopards eating people's faces moment yet, and the leopards are ordering seconds. And by 2026, which is now, major crops were bleeding red ink. Corn is down $169 an acre, soybeans down $114, and cotton nearly $400. Net farm income is projected to collapse by $41 billion this year, a 23% drop, and one of the sharpest declines in decades. And you see, the tariffs were the heart attack, and immigration policy was the stroke. Now, I'm going to bet that a lot of these farmers voted in favor of mass deportations, and they're finding out that the people that they're claiming that are stealing jobs are not being replaced by Americans who actually want to work those jobs. And 70% of farm workers are foreign-born. One farmer alone lost $5 million because there was no one left to work. But sometime this year, that one big beautiful bill that was signed into legislation is likely going to give the farmers a bit of more assistance this year. But whether if it's enough remains to be seen.
And whoever is teaching rural America that only poor POCs take public transportation, what is happening? That is an obvious systemic decision and choice to teach people who do not live in urban areas what to expect when they come to urban areas. I made a video about getting on SEPTA in Philly and the tap card machine not working. So many people came on and were like, you are poor, why are you riding the bus? You don't even have any money, you're a thief. And you're like, what? The fact that they have no understanding, no knowledge, no bandwidth to understand how urban people live, how people who live in spaces who take public transit, like what our lives are even like, never have to learn about us. They never have to understand us, but they are quick to use rhetoric that's harmful, stereotypical, racist, classist, evil against us. But they know nothing about us. They understand nothing about how we live. What?
If Republicans are somehow able to pass the Save America Act, I think they're going to find out the hard way who has a passport, because guess who it's going to be? It's going to be immigrants. It's going to be the educated. It's going to be the progressive people that have left their county, that have left their state to go somewhere other than Florida, somewhere other than the next state over. It's going to be the people that have been outside of their hometowns and thus are therefore more progressive, more liberal. And yes, I'm not defending this. I'm not saying it's a good idea, and nor do I think it's actually going to pass, because it's a poll tax. It's illegal. It's against the Constitution. Unless you're going to provide every single citizen with a passport or the ID that allows them to move forward in the voting process and to make it legal, you cannot do it. Republicans are going to come out and say, well, why can't you have an ID? Why can't you show an ID to vote? There are a lot of Americans, for a copious number of reasons, who do not have an ID that would be acceptable. And at the same time, they're going to find out that all these undocumented migrants, all these illegal aliens that they want to villainize and say are voting in all these elections, don't exist. It's not happening. They are afraid of a boogeyman that doesn't exist. Yet what they will do if they somehow pass the Save America Act is they will open up a can of worms that will produce the boogeyman they were afraid of. The immigrant, the liberal, the progressive, the person who has left their hometown, has a passport and is able to vote and rock them in the midterms and elections to.
I am on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm on the verge of tears overnight.
I am truly sorry about
spend the
what
most money.
happened
Get in. Click like and click share. We're gonna have a conversation, all right? Remember this line: don't go broke.
But you
trying
did
to impress
ask
people.
a very
Do not do
important
that, all right?
question.
So, oh my God, thanks so much for sharing this video so quickly. Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing this video. Mark, thanks for sharing this video. At the line, I believe it is. Thank you for sharing this video. So, y'all know I did a video years ago. Did almost like 40 million views. It was like 40 million views. And it was called
You
Don't Go Broke,
chose
trying to impress people.
to
Right?
elect, and I'm saying that based off of the fact that you're in Missouri.
The point of the video is I was being very open. I was talking about
You
how
voted for the
years
other
and years
guy.
and years ago, this is probably almost 10 years ago now, I was
You didn't listen
on the verge of bankruptcy.
to
I was.
black women.
And this is relatable for
when
you all.
we
Trust me,
said
you know, even if you're
this
not
would
in
happen.
financial trouble, just think about your financial abundance. I was on the verge of
And
bankruptcy because I was overspending
trust and believe
on the
I
home,
take
the car,
zero
the
pleasure
lifestyle, the vacation,
at
the brunches,
what's going
all that
on
kind of stuff, the gifts,
with your
the loans
farm and
towards
your
friends and
situation.
family, because I was trying to impress people.
But remember,
And what I realized was that the key
you
to my
heard
financial future
they were
was
getting
around
rid of
making financial choices
illegal
that asserted my
criminals
boundaries and protected my wealth.
and
You know what I'm saying? And some of y'all say, well, I ain't got no
rapists
wealth to protect. Well,
and
baby, you ain't gonna never
drug
have it unless you
dealers.
have a wealth building mindset. Wealthy people
That's
didn't
what you
become
heard.
wealthy just because of the fact that they wanted to be
What
wealthy. They
black
became wealthy
women
because they had a wealth
heard
building mindset back when they were
was
broke, and that took them there.
he's getting
So anyway,
rid
I
of
posted this video the
immigrants.
other day.
Full
And so
stop,
I've been doing
period.
these home tour videos, like I've been showing you different places that I'm considering moving into,
And
right?
we wanted to
I'm looking
protect
for a
our
home
nation.
here. I've been in Brazil for a couple years now. Now I'm finally ready
And
for
you
me to build
didn't
my
want to
life in
protect
a
our
way.
nation.
This is this. Now I'm
You
finally
wanted or was
I'm finally
thinking
ready
that
to,
he was going to give you some
you know,
type of
settle
boost
in
in
Zeppelin
MAGA.
and stop hopping around, right? So I've been
He is
posting
a
these little home tours
convicted
here and there, right?
felon.
And so anyway,
There was no way
first two were, you know,
he was going to do something for the good of anybody but himself.
You know, the person who was there
And
was
you
like,
fell
I don't
for
want
it.
none of this stuff. I gotta leave. So if
So
you
I'm
want
sorry
this
you
to
fell
everything,
for it.
I was like, that's easy, right? Well, the third home
Choose
that my
better
realtor
next
sent
time.
me was it's in a
Vote
fabulous
properly
neighborhood. It's literally
in your
half a
midterm.
block from the ocean. Like you don't
Because
get better
I
than this,
can
okay?
say that this is
And
going
he was
to
like, listen,
have
you ain't incredible.
dramatic
But I'll see it, right?
effects
And when I went there, it was a
down
little
the line
smaller than some of the rest of the homes. I will say this is a little
for your
smaller than
children
the rest of them.
and your children's children. Be safe. Bye.
About to see the devastation, especially to rural health care
Yeah.
and rural economies, that the big, ugly bill is going to cause. In Kentucky, 35 rural hospitals are at threat to close. 35. Each one is the biggest payroll in their community. And so if they close, not only can you not see a doctor, you know, a woman might have to drive 2 hours just to give birth. We're seeing especially those centers closing because of what the margins are. But if that rural hospital closes, so does the coffee shop. So does the restaurant. So does the bank. So does the insurance agency. What this is going to do to rural America is devastating.
On this episode of FAFO titled
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O.
During the 2024 election, 444 farming-dependent counties voted for DT during the election at 77.7%. Well, let's see how some of them are doing now.
According to the American Farm Bureau, it is part of a long-lasting decline. We've seen it year after year, while farm bankruptcies, by the way, are on the rise. The largest decline at the state level was Texas. No surprise, it's lost 2,000 farm operations, while no state saw an increase in farms at all. Last year, Illinois, for example, lost 400, Iowa and Indiana 500, Minnesota a whopping 1,300. The numbers show that the numbers of farms decreased in every economic category except for farms that make $1 million or more in sales each year, which actually saw a minor increase of 50 farms. But any way you look at it or try to paint it, it's a pretty grim picture.
And for the current farming bankruptcies, there's a couple of contributing factors that apply to the situation. The gutting of USAID, which basically allowed farmers to sell their crops internationally for food aid programs, as well as tariffs that were implemented by the guy that they voted for, you know, the 77.7% of farmers that did, as well as farmers' reliance on immigrant labor, in which immigration is having a huge crackdown on. All policies implemented by the guy they voted for. Since I did bring up tariffs, you can probably argue that a lot of these farmers are feeling terrified. In conclusion, I would say that 15,000 of them are having the day that they voted for.
Rural America, especially you in the 8th District of Missouri, I'm talking to you. Those along the Current River, in Van Buren, Shannon County, Lesterville. I'm Susie, and I live in rural Missouri. The House of Representatives voted to sell off 1.9 million pristine acres. What are they going to do with it? Clear cut it. You think it ain't coming to us? Jason Smith voted for that. So did all the rest of them. You think Jason Smith won't come to Alton? You think he won't come to Greer Spring or Big Spring and cut it? Don't be like that. You know he will. He don't plan on coming back here to retire. He's out of here. He's rich now. We have to protect what is ours. Our pristine waters. Because they just voted to sell off 1.9 million acres of their pristine